What is up? Welcome into this beautiful Monday morning edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We got a lot of ground.
Don't look at my FanDuel Sportsbook history because it was a rough couple weeks for your boy, but it's a good Monday.
Some tough L's over the course of the weekend, but locks of the week, I ended up actually doing all right. We'll get to that one on Thursday, though, because we got some interesting quotes. Usually, we don't have head coaches going off on the mic, but we had some this week that we have to get to. First-year guys, maybe they'll learn their lesson as time goes on, but a couple first-year guys made some noise after their games. We're going to start with Antonio Pierce and his comments following the Raiders' loss to the Panthers.
The team just didn't seem to show up tonight.
No, they didn't. I think as the game went on, I don't think it was a team. I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions, and we'll make business decisions going forward as well.
Business decisions.
You never, ever, ever want to hear a coach say that somebody's making business decisions.
Now, you get the tweet every week, though, from the team that says business trip. So maybe they're confused. Is it a business trip? Should I be making business decisions?
It's a business trip for the coaches. For the players, it's, this is our lives. And you can tell, it's like a stench when a guy is not fully committed to the cause. And when not everybody's rowing that boat, the boat seems to get off track or, out of their lane a little bit. And for the Raiders, this is a 2-0 team going into this game yesterday, and they were outmatched. And it was obvious to coach, who's a former player, who can smell the stench just like you and me, that some of these guys just aren't all the way in. What did you think about this? And I know a lot of people were saying Devontae Adams on Twitter, but that's not what you saw.
So you had a clip that was Devontae sitting on the bench as the game went to halftime and not running it with the team right away.
Because they got the whiteboard in there. They're going to take a look at some of the schemes that worked, that didn't work. That's
Yeah, you were saying that's important. Like
you sprint in. That's why you see these coaches sprint in. When Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, they do their little halftime interview, and then they sprint to the locker room. They're not sprinting because they don't have to go poop. Okay, they're going in there and figure out what works on offense, what works on defense.
And in NFL, it's 15 flat.
Yep.
It ain't college where the band sticks out there for a half hour plus. You got 15 minutes, and once that 15 minutes is up, they're kicking off third quarter. I saw, though, on tape, and this shouldn't be too surprising to anyone who is a Patriots fan, Jack Jones, cornerback. If we're talking business decisions, he had a tackle attempt on Chuba Hubbard where he was content to not tackle Chuba Hubbard one-on-one, and the ball bounced outside in the fourth quarter. And then even later than that one he at least touched Chuba, but it was – you could tell he wasn't going to leave his feet. He wasn't going to actually try to bring him to the ground. He was just there so he didn't, get fined, as Marshall Lynch would say. The next one, he actually didn't even touch. He was involved in the play.
Is he hurt?
And backed away. I don't know. That's just Jack Jones' MO. That's why he got cut.
Because I've been in situations like this as a player where I'm kind of like, we may have a 2-score lead or we may be down by 2 scores and there's less than 2 minutes remaining. You kind of look at the guy across from the ball and, if something's not right with you physically, you could be like, hey, man, let's get out of here. All right, let's get out of here healthy. And there's kind of that mutual agreement. But it's one guy, and if he's healthy and this is his MO, there's real cause for concern.
And, again, this is nothing new. This was why when he got drafted by the Patriots, I had people who knew him being like, they could not believe that he's not a good guy. He had the arrest for breaking into a Panda Express back in college, which, I can empathize with that. Dude, if it's 3 a.m. and Panda's not open.
They stuff that plate up so
exactly.
much,
with that one, we could forgive, but then he brought a gun to an airport this season after he's obviously had some decision-making issues in his past. They've continued here. That's, I think,
he's not an air marshal
guy that I saw on tape. Because I was looking after that, and I'm like, who could have, it's Jack Jones. It 100% was Jack Jones.
So they're going to make some business decisions. So Antonio
Pierce,
we'll see,
because
they're going to make some business decisions.
Because I just was on this pod last week saying he is their best cover corner.
Yep.
He's truly, in terms of just pure ability to man match, looks like one of the best in the NFL. But attitude is why he was basically free to sign with anyone, and no one wanted him because he was good in New England.
Tell us this in elementary school. Your attitude determines your altitude, okay? And a guy like Antonio Pierce probably had similar elementary school teachers as I did. He don't play that, okay? Antonio says, I'll find a guy to come in here who's going to step up and do that, because with the Raiders, there's a way that you do things, and it ain't what he's seeing from Jack Jones.
Yeah, and I do think Antonio Pierce, he was the kind of guy you're going to give him a shot, but I don't think that shot's going to last too much longer with behavior like that. All right, other head coach here making some waves.
This is great
with this post-game press conference. Not even really. He just had a great response.
That's a good answer.
It was Raheem Morris of the Atlanta Falcons after the no PI on Brian Cook in the end zone, the Kyle Pitts third down that they ended up not scoring on that drive, where I think we could all agree the contact was early. He wasn't looking at the ball.
Pass interference, get your head around. If you're not, that's a penalty. They didn't call it. It was kind of obvious to me.
It was almost identical to the PI at the end of the 49ers game where Devondre Campbell didn't get his head around on the sideline. That one was flagged. Rams end up winning that game. This one wasn't flagged. Chiefs end up winning the game. And Raheem Morris had this to say about it after the fact.
They didn't see the pass interference. It looked like it was clearly pass interference on the replay.
I like my money, Lid. I like my money that Arthur Blank gives me.
For another play, you don't have to get time for that.
Yeah, you do.
Raheem Morris, wise beyond his years. That's a guy who's been a head coach before.
Protecting your
learned the
paper.
ropes, and he knows how to do it differently this time around.
Yeah, protecting your paper there. I mean, you never want to be known as the coach who just complains about the refs all the time. You'd like to have some analysis, not dealing with the officiating. But after a game like that, where the Falcons lose at home, when quite honestly they look like the better football team a lot of that football game, good on him for not complaining. But also, you're making your point, like, hey, I'm not here to complain about the refs, but pass interference.
We all saw it.
And there's a lot of people at home. This is the talk about the Chiefs. The refs are, the Chiefs are in the refs' pockets in terms of they're paying these guys, and that must be the case, right? That must be the case that the Chiefs are cheating. Maybe it's just that sometimes calls get missed.
It is wild how thin the margins are in the NFL. We are 2 flags, and now that one. That doesn't necessarily, they throw that flag. It's not like Falcons immediately win. Whereas last week, if they had not thrown the flag, the Bengals would have won.
Yep.
That game was over. The Bengals would have won. But how thin the margins are, if those two go just differently.
Well, the one last week was, this one was too, wasn't called. It's unfortunate, but not everything's perfect. It's not an exact science here with these guys, the sets of eyeballs on these plays. But bang, bang play. You get a guy like Pitts who's a little bit bigger than Cook, and Cook is there early. He doesn't turn his head. All the signs point towards pass interference, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. The other funny part, not necessarily of that clip, although the man he mentioned in that clip, Arthur Blank last night inducting himself in his own Ring of Honor. What are our thoughts?
It makes me want to start like a long household Ring of Honor, and I can induct myself in it and be a controlling partner and who gets to be in it.
We should have a podcast pushing the pile Ring of Honor.
I like that, and we can be the
first two.
I loved the red jackets. I would also induct myself into a Ring of Honor if I could get one of those red jackets. It was awesome to see him walk out there, but also I want to talk about how cool that stadium is.
Oh, it's so good.
Like, you see Patrick Mahomes warming up pregame. None of the lights are on except for the laser show. It's like a scene from Blade in there, and like the vampire Patrick Mahomes is warming up. It just looked awesome to me. I think they do a great job in Atlanta.
And plus, I will say, I mean, if we're just ranking owners, Arthur Blank's a darn good owner. Falcons fans have been semi-blessed with a fairly good owner. There are far worse around the NFL. So if we're throwing guys in the Ring of Honor, I'm not going to push back against Arthur Blank. If Dan Snyder was tossing himself in the Ring of Honor back when he owned the Commanders, we could have had a field day with that.
Tells you everything you need to know about Arthur Blank when he's walking off the sideline, and behind him is just the beautiful crowd that is the Atlanta Falcons' home field advantage. And I talked about the lights, and obviously, as a fan of a football team, you want to see good football. They've done that in Atlanta. They've got competitive teams all the time. But then you want to have that experience, and they have one of the best experiences in football, in my opinion, at Mercedes.
Well, and they have street pricing, elite for a fan base, where you go in and the cost of a beer, cost of a hot dog is what you would expect to pay at bars around the area.
That's
it's
fantastic.
Not $15 for a Miller Lite. They're not trying to gouge you. It's street pricing. So that obviously elite from an owner. And then that stadium on TV is truly, I mean, they host SEC championship games. There are other big events. Anytime the one is there, it just has like a
modern, classy.
Yes, it's just beautiful. It looks beautiful on HGTV. Just truly does.
I bet the beers are so cold too. Oh,
okay. I had a few cold ones this weekend. When did you get to yourself? I know we both had weddings.
You know what? I did have a couple cold ones on Saturday. I was at a wedding in Cape May, New Jersey. I'd never been to Cape May, New Jersey. It's the most southern part of New Jersey. It's exit 0 Okay. Exit 0, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't get a bumper sticker. I thought about it. But I can't name 3 roads in Cape May, New Jersey. So why would I get a bumper sticker?
I can't remember the last time I've been in New Jersey.
I had a couple light beers. Usually I'm an IPA guy. I had a couple light beers at the open
Hey,
bar.
join me. That's my go-to. But yeah, I enjoyed myself as well. I had one on Friday, so I got to actually have a few more than
Good.
yourself. So it was a good time. But we have a few new segments, actually. One new segment coming up after this. It's called Upon Further Review. We're very excited to debut it. And then we're going to preview all 14 games.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
All right, we got a new segment. I was stewing Friday morning. I'm at a coffee shop, and I'm just like, I want to talk about this. How do I talk about this on the pod? And it was Mel Kiper and his take about not playing cover 2 or not banning 2 high safeties, banning it in the NFL. And so I came up with, because there's always something from the weekend that I can't really shoehorn, that I really want to get to, that I can't really shoehorn into the game recaps without just going on for 10 minutes of a game recap. Yep. And it's kind of like ancillary. So
we got to build a wing for this. We got to build a section for this.
Exactly. It's called Upon Further Review. And it's basically going to be just a take that we wanted to get off our chest that we saw over the weekend. So Mel Kiper claimed that he wants to ban 2 high safeties. I have so much wrong with this. I don't know where to start, but I think I'm going to start with this. If your first instinct when you see scoring down around the NFL or the game changing to a degree is to implement new rules, if your first instinct is authoritarianism, I'm just going to wholeheartedly disagree with you. I think that is absurd, Mel Kiper, to just change the rules just because teams haven't quite adapted yet. And that's what it is. It's that they haven't found the antidote to what we're seeing go across the NFL in these combo coverages, these sim pressures that are everywhere. We just haven't found teams figure out the best ways to beat this, because the ways that we saw beat the cover 3s and the man-heavy defenses of old, which was play action deep shots that just the new defenses take away, they don't exist anymore in this kind of modern paradigm of what defenses are running. You're seeing a lot more pressure off of play action with free runners off of blitzes. A lot of teams are scared to then turn their quarterbacks around because of that. And you're seeing a lot of those downfield over and crossers that teams were just spamming. You're seeing them get taken away. And so what it's going to have to do, though, is make you play more effective offense, make you execute better. I don't think that's a bad thing for anyone, that these low-hanging fruit schematic advantages that we saw offenses take advantage of the past decade, that those don't exist anymore, is objectively a good thing for, in my opinion, the quality of play or what is needed to perform on the offense side of the ball. So now the defense is taking the power back. We see these sort of seasons that the NFL game goes through, in my opinion, are good for the game. It makes you remember different parts of what the game looked like, whether it was the mid-2000s and how that game looked like when I was growing up, whether it was the 2010s and how that game looked like when I was, in adulthood, finally starting my career in the football world. And now another evolution of the game, what it's going to be going through the next few years, it's going to look different. And that's a good thing. We don't have to change and ban evolutions just because they favor one side of the ball or the other. To me, that's crazy. And for anyone who agreed with him, I'm just going to be.
I don't know if there's anybody that agrees.
That's the thing. No one. I'm maybe
if you agree
arguing
with Mel
against the
Kiper, tell
here.
us in the chat. If you don't agree with Mel Kiper, that's a great way to put it, Mike. And as an offensive lineman, from an offensive lineman perspective, some of these defenses, they're challenging you to run the football. They're essentially saying, you have to run us out of this look. Okay, if you don't like it, if you can't have explosive plays over the top, well, what are you going to do about it? And the only way to do that is to force their hand to get more guys down and open up things on the back end for your offense. And the way you do that is against, like, nickel runs is what we used to call it. When we played Green Bay, they used to challenge us. They'd say, our front 6 are going to be able to handle your 5. We don't think you're tough enough to run us out of cover 2. The only way that you can get through this thing or out of this situation is to go through it. That's with running the football, getting these guys to respect it. The schemes change, and then windows open up on the back end. That's what you have to do. There's really no secret about this whole thing. They're challenging you. We had an O-line coach, Aaron Kromer, he used to say, they don't respect you. they don't respect you. And Cromer knew what he was doing. He was telling our guys, do you see the defense? Do you see what Cutler's got to deal with here?
Yeah.
Run the football, create advantageous situations for your quarterback, and that'll get them out of that cover 2, that's 2 high, 3 high looks that they're always in.
Yeah, it's just maybe I overreacted to one guy's take, and a lot of people were.
It's not an
calling him out,
overreaction.
but it's more like the suggesting new rules part. I don't care what it is, just because one side's taking the upper hand. It's gross. It's gross to me. All right, what's your opinion?
I like that. Upon further review, I still hate gun runs in the low red area. I still hate not getting under center in short yardage. I still don't understand the willingness to allow the defense to react and go downhill. When you have the ball in a short yardage situation, the advantages you have are, first off, it's not a very long distance to go. Second off, we know the snap count. Thirdly, we know which direction we're going to run the football. We have the advantage. When I was growing up, it was fullbacks going back on backer, followed by a running back smacking head. It's rolling guys off the ball. When you're in gun, and I'm talking about the Bears here, and I was listening to the Bears center, Coleman Shelton, in his post-game locker room interview. They asked him about the 4th and 1 play down there on the goal line. A lot of you guys know what I'm talking about here. He said, well, I mean, speed option on, obviously wasn't the greatest look to run that. And he could have been like, it was a terrible call, but he said it wasn't the greatest look to run that. I'll be honest with you, it was a horrible call. It was an atrocious call. They should be thrown in jail for the play call because you got this quarterback back there throwing the ball 50 times. Now you want him to go speed option, take a potential hit with an overhang defender on the left side. Your quarterback's out of the play immediately when they've got +1 on the left side. You run speed option. There's supposed to be a pitch man and somebody that has the quarterback, somebody that has the running back. There's not just one guy overhang. There's 2 guys overhang. The play call's dead on arrival. When you get to the line of scrimmage, you look at numbers. If I'm Caleb Williams, I'm either taking a delay of game or calling timeout. I'm saying this isn't going to work. If I'm the lineman on the left side, I'm doing the math, and I'm saying we got to book this guy. There's another guy. There's 2 guys. The math doesn't add up. There's too many guys over there. I'll take it one step further. When you got a guy like Lamar Jackson and you're in the low red area, and you hand the football off in gun for Lamar Jackson, you take your best player out of the game, you create a 10-on-11 situation for the defense, and you're at a disadvantage. Get under center, hand these guys the football with the option of then keeping it and leaking out the backside. Because when you're under center, the linebackers have to react immediately. When you're in gun, things are patient. Things take a little bit of time. There's the ball, there's the handoff action. What do they call it? Mesh point, but it's ball handling. The ball handling takes a little bit longer. When you're under center and the play is 95 Bob and we've got a fullback and we've got a running back, I like our chances at the line of scrimmage. I like my chances as a guard. I get to shoot my gun, close my eyes, and dominate what's ever in front of me. And when you take that out of my hands and it becomes a play where you're trying to capture or you're trying to out-scheme somebody on the edge, that's when you get in trouble. We lift weights all off season. We beat the hell out of each other's faces all week in individual period. We run inside zone. We run gap. We run duo. And then we get down there and we run speed option. And now the defense gets to be on offense and run downhill and take us out of the play. I hated the play call. I will always hate it when you've got a dual threat quarterback who has the ability to become that +1 on your offense, particularly in those situations. That's when you convert more often than not. Even Peyton Manning did a boot naked and was untouched in the end zone. These things, it's not rocket science, guys. It's not rocket science. You're under center, you roll guys off the ball, you score the football up the middle. When you don't, and you try to get cute, more often than not, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
I'll say this. The data, pure shotgun versus under center, is conflicting in terms of it's about even.
I'll tell you as an O-lineman, though,
in terms of success
even,
rate,
bro.
It's not
even.
But running speed option, I think going gimmicky in short yardage is when I get a little worried.
Where do you draw the line for gimmicky? Because Andy Reid is doing shovel passes and
speed option to me is not something that a quarterback is reads enough to read well. Like when you watch a Navy do it at the collegiate level, or you watch a triple option team that's good
all
at
they
it.
do.
They know to press the guy, pitch it. But if you haven't done that, and Caleb Williams objectively
Just ran laterally.
hasn't done that, and you saw Anthony Richardson do it in a short yardage last week too, where he doesn't have the reps to know when you get a little bit of a look that you didn't expect, how to handle it.
Historically, that's a play call you get to as a check.
Yes.
If we are running X play, if they come out and we get this certain look, let's say there's 5 down look, you get a bear look, then you can pitch it off that end man on the line of scrimmage, right? They went out predetermined in speed option.
And it was
4th
not,
and 1.
yes, exactly.
And that's when you start to question the coordinator. You start to question who's making the pre-snap reads and who's communicating.
There's that clip or this screenshot of literally within about 2 steps of Caleb getting sideways. Every offensive line with the Bears is on the ground. And now it's like, yeah, you're going to cut in certain situations, so it's not bad. But then every Colts defensive lineman is not on the ground. So
somebody said it looked like the bad guys after they fought the Power Rangers. Just a bunch of bodies on the ground. The putties, remember the putties? They used to get beat up all the time.
Were.
And then that big witch.
Faceless.
Who's the big witch?
Just getting their ass handed to them. Yeah, what was it?
She was evil.
I was a big Power Rangers guy. My parents.
You kind of look like a Power Rangers guy.
Story. My parents, I was so obsessed with the Power Rangers as a kid. They told me that it went off TV, even though it didn't.
Why would they do that?
I found that out as an adult. I was like, man, I can't believe that they took that show off the TV.
You saw
I said
the
to my parents,
2012 version of it, and you were like, hey, Mom and Dad, what the hell?
I was like, oh, man, they brought it back. I can't believe they took it off in the first place. And my parents were like, we had to tell you that. You were too obsessed with it.
My parents told me that about 106 in Park. I used to be a big hip-hop with Big Tigga in the basement. That was my jam.
We both had our own unique interests. And I don't blame my parents, honestly. I don't want my kid getting obsessed.
I do blame mine.
For the 106
I could have been a hip-hop artist.
I can see it. I can't see it. I'm
Big
lying.
Kyle.
I'm lying right now. All right, let's get to some of these game reviews because we have a lot of ground to cover here. 14 games. Kansas City Chiefs, Atlanta Falcons, Sunday Night Football, first on tap here. Chiefs win 22-17, even if that was about as rough a Pat performance as I've seen. It's the first half, at least. First half was about as bad a half football I've seen from Pat, like a fully healthy Pat, whether it was missing throws, bad decisions. It was like an
interception in the end zone to the right side. You saw him floated. I believe Noah Gray was going to be booty naked open.
Did you see on that interception? Did you see Travis Kelce?
No.
Oh, it's great. The pick.
I was focused on the
protection. Kelce had the corner. I can't remember who exactly it was. I don't believe it was who ended up making the pick. He had the corner come to him, and so it was kind of like a smash concept where he's got a corner coming over the top of a hitch route. And as soon as Kelce saw the corner come to him, he puts his finger up in the air like he's Nick Young, you know, in that famous, he shot it, thought he was going in. He puts his finger up in the air as if it's a touchdown, turns back around, and is so confused that not only is it not a touchdown.
What a play by that guy coming over the top,
Justin Simmons coming over the top on that
6 interceptions on Patrick Mahomes.
That was.
I started doing that. I'm like, are these guys in division with one another? How does he get so many opportunities?
Bates is the best ball hawk in the NFL right now. That guy has.
But it was Carson Steele leaking out on an option route late in the protection. Well, it wasn't late. It was a bang-bang play. But Carson Steele did not see the left A-gap or B-gap defender who came through and got a shot on Patrick Mahomes as he's fading away, throwing that football.
And that's how you got the
initially, when I watched it, I said, Pat will probably just say that was a lazy throw. He wants that one back. I go look at it. Carson Steele is a check for protection and get out. And he got it. It was like check. And right when he turned, this guy comes in. And you can see how these things break down and how important every assignment in a play can be, because that's the difference between Noah Gray.
Pick that up?
What?
Does Pacheco pick that up?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he does.
Yeah.
Honestly. And I'm not here to bash on Carson Steele. I thought he ran.
No, but it's just like.
I thought he ran hard, and he had some great pickups in the game, but also there's the ones that stick out to you. An interception in the red area, that's big time. They're going to look at that. Carson Steele is going to want to have that played back.
All right, some other notes from my notebook here from this game.
Empty the notebook, and then I'll get after it.
I don't empty the notebook. I can't believe they're playing a corner that's wearing number 13, Najee Johnson. That's a 4th preseason game number. That man has to change it.
Shut up.
Kyle Pitts is an enigma. He's terrible at normal tight end routes, but awesome at wide receiver routes.
Yep.
But he's actually a better blocker this year, though, than he has been in years past. And he's huge. He's just big. Like a mammoth of a dude. And that's why I wrote also here, Kirk put 0 air on the throw to him, and then the next throw to Drake London. They're 6'6" and 6'4". I mean, Kirk, if you're going to do anything, get it up. Let those guys go get it. Even the PI, he's having to go over the back of another guy. If that's up at his face mask, we're not even talking about the PI. That's a touchdown. So those, I wrote, it is wild that the 3 top 10 skill players they drafted. So it went Pitts, then London, then Bijan. None are busts, but none are like top 10 players. You know, they kind of like middled on all of them. They were like, yeah, they're fine. None of them ended up being
misses.
Like
they're not quite
studs.
hits.
Yes, exactly.
Although Bijan does some things, man, physically.
He is very good.
He
but it's
does
like,
some things. I'm like, is he a ballerina out there? He's the most muscular ballerina I've ever seen in my life.
But he had some blitz pickups and some blocks. He led that one end around, or was it end around? Whatever, the wide receiver jet sweep all the way to the edge. That was a big time block that he had to lead that one out. I wrote, do you think someone forced Travis Kelce to come back this season? Watching him try to juke in the open field on a screen was just sad.
I just think that
you think there's like powers that be, like some money was behind this, because he has there's a lot of fanhood riding on him being in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of bread coming in outside of the league
Podcast,
too.
yeah.
So I mean, he's made more money in that podcast in the last few years than he has in his career as one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game of football. But I think, to your point, he is so important to the chemistry of that football team, the calm of that football team. One thing that I experienced when I was in that locker room is the understanding that you're never out of a football game when you got Mahomes, particularly when Travis is an option. And we saw at times the replays, here's a guy who draws a lot of coverage, and there's got Travis running a dozen different routes with 3 combinations of coverage on him. He can never find a way out. You see him doing his foot in the ground, bend back, and they still got guys all around him. But look, guys like Rashee Rice are superstars on this team. Noah Gray gets targets. Xavier Worthy, they give him opportunities. So for me to say they paid Travis to be back, I just think he wants to finish this thing with a 3-peat.
Yeah.
He wants to get a 3-peat, and I have no doubt that he's going to be done after this season. But I'm not concerned. It's early in the season. We know who's going to get the football at the end of the year. It's going to be Travis Kelce when everybody else is covered up, and that's kind of the deal with the Chiefs. That's just what happens.
All right, a couple more notes. Wanye. Trial by fire. He did not get much help there on the left tackle. It wasn't great, but it was not probably as bad as Kingsley was.
It was serviceable.
I'm guessing he maintains that job.
Kingsley lined up on the wrong side early in the game in a heavy O-line formation. He came out, lined up on the wrong side, and they had to call timeout.
Basically, great way to not get your job back.
Yeah, come on, bro. We're trying to involve you.
And then last note here. Mahomes, 4.6 yard average depth of targets, the lowest in the NFL this season. That's his average depth of targets for 3 games. And you're 3-0.
Whew. When you got receivers that run directly behind the defensive line, they catch it and they can run with it for 15 yards. That doesn't really concern me at all. I just think, to our conversation about the cover 2 stuff, it's like, this is what you're getting now. This is what the league is. And until you can run the football, you won't have those opportunities for the deep, late developing routes.
So we'll see how the Chiefs end up offensively, because they're still winning with defense, honestly. All right, next game up here. Ravens.
Hold on. Before we go on, I want to just say that first drive from the Atlanta Falcons scared the shit out of me as a Chiefs fan, because when I see Chris Jones over there getting absolutely hemmed up by the right guard, the entire line of scrimmage moving, the ball getting out on time, and it's boom, 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 touchdown Falcons. Then you get the Chiefs with the ball and they elect to go for it early on the 40-yard line. I looked at my wife and I said, Andy just knows that this is going to be – it seemed to me at the time that it just felt like one of those games where we have to match them because they are balling. And if I really don't think if Dahlman and the other guy don't go out of that football game, we're looking at a Falcons easy win.
Yeah.
In my opinion. To your point, Patrick, not tremendous last night.
So I was a little surprised they leaned on O-line on that last 4th down. It's like you didn't have the force.
It was ugly at some points. I thought Storm Norton did a good job in the run. In the pass, it got a little sketchy. He's a high-cut guy. He's a really high-cut guy.
Yeah, super tall. All right, Ravens, 28. Dallas Cowboys, 25. Cowboys made it close at the end. This one, they ran out to a 28-6 lead. As road fades, actually. Cover that spread. 48.5 points was the over-under. That one hits. This was kind of the worry with the Cowboys. This is their run defense. And what they're doing defensively, I am worried about it. I said it was better week one. It has been god-awful the last. It's both. It's the fact that they want to live in too high. They want to live in light boxes. They want to do all they can to give themselves numbers in the passing game. And with Mike Zimmer, like that was what he did with Minnesota. That was his bread and butter. He was kind of early on that wave of taking guys out of that run defense. But they don't have the horses. I'm watching Mozzie Smith, their first rounder from a year ago, just get his ass kicked on the interior. Cannot hold a gap to save his life. You got 35-year-old Linval Joseph out there hoping to play every run in a phone booth. And when it goes wide outside of him, he ain't going to be a factor in those. They don't have the horses right now, and they're not even trying to create chaos. You know, when you don't have those guys up front, and we'll talk about how like the Eagles shifted their plan to deal with some run game issues. And
Jalen Carter eat.
And how, you know, other run defenses across the NFL, you got to just start to try to create chaos with that front four. And they flat out, they got some guys that can. You know, Osia Odigizua can penetrate. DeMarcus Lawrence can penetrate. Micah Parsons can penetrate. They're trying to play gap control right now with those guys. And then, you know, like a 220-pounder in DeMarvion Overshown coming over the top. So they're trying to let guys sit on blocks when they don't have the guys that can sit on blocks.
They're getting eaten up.
And so they're getting eaten up. And this game was a feast for Derrick Henry, for Lamar Jackson. And then when you have that, it changes like the eye lines. It's almost like when you're doing that, when you're getting your ass kicked up front so much, well, then your linebackers start worrying. Then they're coming downhill, and then play action's just fruitful as ever. So
Can we pull that graphic up again? Because best records, starting record by a quarterback versus NFC. This guy's 21-1 against the NFC. Like
he's difficult when you don't see him, and he's difficult on turf. It's what we said going in.
You did say that. Lamar Jackson on turf. He only threw the ball 15 times. He was efficient in the passing game. But this is why you bring a guy like Derrick Henry into your building, because you can step up to these big heavyweight showdowns and make it all about your group and make it all about whether or not the defense wants to sit on these blocks. And they just can't in Dallas. And there's infighting on the defensive sideline. There's stars that seemingly are not getting along. There's not a lot of chemistry there. Big concerns for Dallas and for the Ravens. You know, they find a way to get this thing done. They could be 3-0 right now.
Had to have it.
They could be 3-0 right now.
Yeah, they really could be.
Which is crazy.
But they are, I've stole this from Deontay Lee on Twitter, the most penalized team in the NFL. From an EPA perspective, the penalties they've had are like giving up a touchdown to the opponent and taking one off the board for yourself.
14-point swing.
Tough to win games when that's the case. And why I think penalties, tackling are personnel problems, not as much coaching problems. Now, some can be coaching problems. I think more so like collegiate level. A lot
Coaches don't cause false starts.
But yes, I think a lot of times players themselves are inconsistent from a penalty perspective, are inconsistent from a tackling perspective. Like there are things that are innate, whereas people want to harp on coaching staffs when guys can't tackle, or coaching staff when guys at this rate, when they're 28 years old and they can't tackle.
They didn't teach us how to tackle when we got there, bro.
Yeah. If you're 28 years old and you can't tackle, I don't think it's on the coaching staff. And everyone, you know, it's not like they're in the building like, hey, if you want to miss one, go ahead and miss one. If you want to false start real quick, that's cool by us. The Harbaugh and his staff, they're preaching it. It's probably just they got a problem now with a lot of, especially in the
we said the Ravens were going to do this, though.
Pieces.
They can't protect. They can't protect the passer. So what are they going to do? It's no secret. They're going to give the Titanic the football 35 times, and they're going to get out of Dodge with a win. And that's what happened. Cowboys never really had a chance. Well, 2 minutes left. It was like a 2-possession ball game. Dak makes a great throw in the back left of the end zone, and now we got a chance. They got an onside kick, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things had to happen to get back in this game.
Brandon Aubrey, superstar.
Yep.
65-yarder in this game, the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys. And then he hits the 2 sidewinding onside kicks. So they recover the first one. And I could not believe Zay Flowers recovered the second one. Did you see how he got it? It was bouncing, and then kind of like popped right up into one hand.
Yep.
He was not ready for it.
It's like a shortstop.
Great adjustment, though. Yes, great adjustment. I thought both of those could recover.
He's a freak athlete. We don't appreciate it enough.
And also why I was like, why didn't they kick another one? They had a chance for a third one just outside the 2-minute warning, and they kicked it deep. Ravens get a first down, end up icing the game out.
You're not stopping these guys.
Why were so many teams not kicking onside kicks? You had the Bears do the same thing. kick it deep.
Bears had a lot of issues, and we're going to cover it throughout the course of the week. But it was that's a coaching thing.
Yeah.
That's a coaching thing in Chicago. I have real concerns there.
A few more notes. Nate Wiggins, the rookie corner, we saw an extended run from him because obviously on the field in a lot of obvious passing situations. I liked what I saw, but the urgency has to increase. He was still playing like he can recover against anyone, not being as proactive and really trying to just like react and then follow. When you're guarding CeeDee Lamb, you can't react and follow.
No.
You got to be the aggressor at some point in time to get hands on him, and he wasn't, and it cost him a few times.
He tries to bait throws?
Well, he just tries to he runs a 4.2 to 7.
So he's like, go ahead.
He's like,
get open.
Yeah,
I'll catch you.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have that urgency of, I got to stop them from getting open in the first place rather than I can just
It's like good offensive tackles allow edge rushers to get upfield so that they can be outside of
work
them,
your moves,
and then they run them by.
Exactly. Our Darius Washington, have to give a shout out to him. Former UDFA safety, smallest man in the football field every time he goes out there. He's 5'8", 180.
Jeez.
PBU 1-on-1 against CeeDee Lamb. 4th down near interception and stopped the 2-point conversion to CeeDee Lamb that would have made it a 2-score game. Forced them to get those 2 onside. Forced them to have to onside kick.
I bet he's a Florida man.
Warning. Our Darius went to TCU, like a Texas boy.
He might be a Florida
man.
He still could be a Florida man.
There you go. And then Derrick Henry's diet. We have to talk about this.
Yes.
Not just his diet, but no fried foods, no dairy, no gluten, no artificial sugar. All like sound advice for most human beings.
No ice cream?
I mean, you can have ice cream without artificial sugar.
Dairy.
Lactose free.
That's not ice cream.
It's not. You're taking a lot of stuff off of ice cream.
Now I'm eating lab-grown meat.
But then he won't eat until 4 or 5 p.m.
Yeah, that's the one that gets me.
Which is like...
I could see noon.
So he's hardcore intermittent fasting.
But he does eat an avocado or a banana before practice. And I thought it was weird. I think it was Mark Andrews on the broadcast. Tarico was saying that he reminds Mark Andrews of an EV truck. He's efficient, he's fast, and he's powerful. To me,
well, they got the better acceleration on those EVs.
This guy's an absolute like a Hemi pickup. He's a diesel pickup truck. He's big and heavy.
Spends $250,000 on body maintenance a year.
And I think James Harrison spent like $500,000. You and I were talking.
Where does that money go though? I can see like you got a chef, you have a personal trainer.
Yep.
What else you got in body maintenance? I'm just curious.
You have a chiropractor on call, somebody that comes to your house, and more often than not, you have to fly these people in.
Yeah.
You got a deep tissue guy that may be different from or gal that may be different from your chiro. You've got, the nutrition programs, and if you're eating at home and you've got a family, you're not just cooking one meal for yourself. You got to cook for the whole family. This stuff adds up, dude. This stuff adds up. But a lot of it is flights, flights for these specialists. Dry needling. There's a specialist for everything. There's a flavor of the month in recovery throughout the NFL, throughout the course of the season. And James Harrison hit them all. It sounds like Derrick Henry has taken care of himself, and it shows. The guy has had so much volume over the course of the last few years.
Well,
and he's still able to go out there and do it.
I mean, volume dating back to high school, because in his high school career, he had 1,397 carries, which is almost like difficult to fathom. He had 462 carries his senior year.
That's unbelievable.
In the 13-game high school season. I mean, he had 395 carries last year at Alabama. 2,200 yards that year.
But he's built for it. Some guys are just built different. It's like when you watch a guy like Calais Campbell be able to just sit on double teams for 20 years in the National Football League. These guys are just different. There's some guys that are outliers. Derrick Henry is absolutely one of them.
Absolutely. All right. Both those teams, though, now 1-2. Tough start for the Ravens and the Cowboys. But the Ravens, that was their season. Had to have it. They go and get it. Another team that had to have it for their season, the Los Angeles Rams. This one, midway through that second half, looked like a cakewalk for the 49ers. The offense was humming. They were up by 2 scores, 14 points. Kyle Shanahan never lost a game in his head coaching career, went up by 2 scores. Well, they lost one now. 24-27, they go to Los Angeles. The Rams take it with a nice comeback win as 7.5-point dogs. The over hits in that one, 44.5 points. I honestly couldn't believe it. 2:43, down 7. I at least thought overtime at worst. 49ers somehow managed a way to bungle the ending of that game massively. 2 plays that I go back to from watching the tape. One was a 2nd and 20. It's 1st and 20 on that last drive that when the 49ers were up 7. I believe it was when they tried to kick the 55-yarder after that. Brandon Ayuk would have hit his head on the goalpost. They completely busted cover to his side, and Brock Purdy was looking at him. It was the weirdest thing going back and watching the tape. I'm looking at him like, what?
They're playing eye tag.
Was he doing? It was staring right down at him. I wonder if he got spooked at the ref, because there was legitimately no one in the middle of the football field.
It was a safety
except a ref, and he kind of went from the right side, glanced
a
over,
lot.
and looks and turns it down as if, not even like a hesitation, like, oh, I'm going to go that way.
That's
so
covered.
it's just
Go
like,
elsewhere.
that's not open. And if someone's going to tweet out the all-the-way to, or someone's going to tweet out a picture of it, he is 10 yards behind everyone, hand up. Don't know what happened on that one.
Brutal.
That would have been a game winner. The drop from Ronnie Bell, who had 2 drops in that game. They obviously missed Deebo Samuel. That would have been a game winner. I thought Brock Purdy played like an A performance. And when you're losing with Brock Purdy playing an A performance, that's a worry for the 49ers, because they kind of had whatever they wanted offensively, just shot themselves in the foot. They outgained the Rams 425 to 296. We're up 10 points with 6:17 left in regulation. It was just, it felt like everything was going their way. Jawan Jennings went off.
3 touchdowns.
10 catches, 75 plus yards.
You were talking about him last week. Good call there, Mikey.
If you didn't watch, though, I think the bigger worry here is actually how bad Brandon Ayuk's playing after getting this contract. Another drop in this one.
That's a great list there.
Some key third downs that he ran some sloppy routes and wasn't getting open on. Whereas Jawan Jennings was like the number 1 wide receiver in this game. He was truly getting open at will, winning at the catch point. That was great for his financial career.
This just speaks volumes about the culture. And we know that the Rams and the Niners always play each other tough, regardless of injury, roster, situation. This is just a bunch of guys that buy into what Sean McVay's doing. And they're down a lot to this Niners team. They're getting dominated. To your point, Brock Purdy's playing well. They find a way to win. You find a way to win. They get out of Dodge. And we've seen this movie before with Sean McVay, haven't we?
That was and with Matt Stafford. That was a game that, with the pass pro they had, and now they did some good stuff
or they didn't
to get around it. Yeah, they didn't have. That's a game that Stafford, and there's not a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL I'm predicting to win that game. That could even get in the vicinity to winning that game. He had some real high-level throws under pressure, dealt with it really, really well. I wrote here, if Bryce Young had the pass pro Stafford dealt with, he'd be in a gurney right now. Because it was just guys that can't handle that. It would have been suffocating for most quarterbacks. It truly was. Like, they were in his face. The sack numbers didn't show it, but the pass pro still wasn't there. Stafford just did everything he could to keep that offense on schedule. I also do have to give a shout out, though. Kyren Williams was so massive in this game.
That's front flip
from a chip perspective. Not only just like what he was doing as a receiver, as a rusher, he was cleaning up messes in that pocket to try to get, to handle some of these edge rushers, some of these interior guys. And I wrote, I unironically think he'd do better than some of their linemen if he had to line up there.
I just feel like that athleticism, and you get somebody that buys into the protection plan. For those of you who don't know, we do a blitz meeting midweek every week, and it's not just the offensive linemen and the quarterbacks; it's the running backs too. Sometimes the tight ends come, but more often than not, it's just the running backs, quarterbacks, O-linemen, and the coaches from both of those rooms. And some running backs take it seriously, and some running backs don't. I've been in rooms where the running backs are asleep in this meeting. And you got to wake them up to say, hey, this is the cross dog we were talking about. You better have that picked up because you're a big part of it. Kyren Williams comes to these meetings with a legal pad, takes notes, and is locked in. We've seen him in protection time and time again this year. He's been awesome, an extension of the O-line, which is why I think it's a culture thing in the Rams building, regardless if they have the entire roster on IR and none of the skill guys out there. They got Matt Stafford. They got Sean McVay. They've got enough players to field a defense and an offense. Let's go find a way to win. And Kyren, when your opportunity comes up to swing that bat in pass protection, do it because we need you. And he did.
He's 5'9", 200 pounds.
That's more than enough to get it done.
It's about want to. It's not
that was the size of the D lineman that I played against in high school.
I thought you were going to say size of the dog in the fight, not size of the fight in the dog thing.
Big dogs, little dogs. I don't fight dogs.
He's got a lot of fighting the dogs.
I know nothing about fighting dogs.
I don't either. All right, but the Rams take it. All right, next game up. Last one in Tier 1 here. Eagles travel to New Orleans.
Shocker.
pull off the upset as 2.5-point dogs. 49.5 points was the over-under. Well, it wasn't close to that as they won 15-12. This one was ugly, though. I'm not even going to lie, but I want to outline a little bit the Eagles' defensive plan for the New Orleans Saints because it was a far cry from what we saw a week ago from this Eagles defense and truly won them this football game. This was game ball, Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio won, Jalen Carter 2.
Same guy that we were all just complaining about last week. I wasn't complaining about you, Vic, but a lot of people were. And I just, I was mum's the word on this thing.
But Vic showed he still has his fastball. Nick Sirianni showed he still can't hit the curve. But Vic, what he did defensively, they line up, very first drive, bare front. 2 3-techs, nose tackle, 2 outside linebackers.
Every single one of those linemen now, they break the huddle and they got 5 down linemen. They think we're all one-on-ones now.
We're all one-on-ones.
We're not going to get to combo block these guys to death. Oh, they're going to force us to play football today.
Came out in bare fronts. And that was just it. You had one-on-ones across the board, which basically, Jalen Carter, we said last week, he didn't want to hold up the double teams. Well, how do you get him away from double teams?
Put him in a single team.
Exactly. So you couldn't even double team him. He went off in that game. And then when they lined up in 21 personnel, the Saints, when they had 2 backs on the football field, tight end, 2 wide receivers, they would go 4 down between the tackles. I'm going to need help with this in terms of identifying a front. 4 down between the tackles, 2 stand-up outside linebackers on the line of scrimmage. 6 guys on the line of scrimmage. What would you even call that? They had 2 A gaps,
LMF.
2 B gaps
LMF.
covered.
A lot of mother you-know-whats.
And I couldn't believe, though, Clint Kubiak, for all the credit I gave him the first 2 weeks, he lost with his inability to adjust in this game. They were pounding Alvin Kamara's face into those fronts, trying to do the same thing they've done. And I get it. They've been like rolling people. And those fronts are such that if you do catch a crease, you could get a big one. But the Eagles, all they were doing was making you go 1 yard a pop. I mean, Alvin Kamara had nothing going. And what that does when you have that 6-man front on the line of scrimmage, it limits what you can do from a coverage perspective. You basically have to play zone. You have to back these guys out. One of, those edge guys, even if you are blitzing off and he's an edge rusher, he's like Zach Bond, he's not going to get involved.
By the way, Zach Bond.
Heck of a game. And his versatility was huge in that because they could go to those fronts and he could just be that guy that walks down the line of scrimmage.
He was stuffing face.
But if they could have just adjusted, they had actually a good amount of play action shots off of it were open. Now they got shut down a lot because Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis were kind of getting home. They would stunt them post when they saw it was play action passes. They were just letting one guy spike, the other guy loop around and getting home quickly off of play action. But he should have adjusted a lot sooner because those were not fronts that you run against. That was not going to end well, and especially when Eric McCoy goes down, your center goes down early in the game.
It's a bear +1,
yeah,
with a single defender behind the line of scrimmage.
Yes,
and you're asking a lot of the guy behind the line of scrimmage, but the onus is really on the offensive lineman because every single one of you gets singled up. It's tough sledding getting these guys blocked in the National Football League, particularly guys like Jalen Carter, who are so explosive and can attack your edge in the run game, but also have the ability to get gritty and play through your face mask.
So, yeah, great game plan for Vic Fangio. Have to say, Clint Kubiak not adjusting. That hurt him. A few more notes, especially on the Eagles side of the ball. Tyler Steen came in for Mekhi Becton, who had a finger injury. I thought he outplayed Becton. He looked great, in my opinion, at right guard. Now, Lane Johnson being out could be a big impact for this team.
Concussion.
On the Saquon big run touchdown that basically saved this Eagles their chances. The unsung heroes, so you go back and watch, Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson pass off a game between Chase Young. Chase Young spikes inside. Mailata taps him over to Dickerson left guard. Picks Pete Werner wrapping around top, scraping over the top, and you just have a freeway for Saquon Barkley to run through. Hats off to those two. They made it happen.
It's amazing. It's almost like Coach Statland has those guys work on games. And when you pick up games, it's like the thing just opens up. It's like the clouds opening up. This is what we say every week. And when you can't pick up games, it's atrocious.
Wild game from the Eagles' perspective, though. We haven't even talked about the multiple 4th down stops, missed 4th downs, 2 separate 4th downs they didn't get. And then, oh, by the way, I think it was 6:47 left in the 4th, they tried a 60-yarder when they were only up 1 point. What was that?
What's
That is not the time to try a 60-yarder.
You pound it, you take the lead by 10 points, and you get out of Dodge.
Or you punt there. You're up by 1.
Now let's run it.
It was like a 4th and like 7.
Let's throw it.
But definitely don't try the 60-yarder and give them half the field to go across. Not even like they need to get like 20 yards after that to go win the game if the guy misses a 60-yarder. Not the time. That was kind of wild. I hope Devontae Smith's okay. That was a brutal hit. Did you see Peyton Turner?
He is so little, and every time that there are people on his body, I am concerned for his health.
Well, did you see Peyton Turner spitting on him after?
Spitting?
You didn't see that?
Oh, no.
Oh, what's the dirtiest thing you saw on a football field that went like
One time I went to go help.
No flag came out.
I went to go help one of our running backs out of the pile. And I went to go reach and grab him.
Yeah.
And there was a linebacker on the Giants. I forget his name because he wasn't that good. And he thought I was trying to rip him out of the pile. And he went cleats up and out. And he kicked me in the groin. You'll actually be able to find out who it is because later in that game, we were in a 2-minute situation before half.
What year?
And
start
he
throwing
blitzed. It was Matt Nagy was there. I want to say it was probably 2019.
BJ Goodson. No.
But this linebacker elected to blitz one time. Their coach sent him in on a blitz on me, and I just absolutely took him and ragdolled him for like 10 seconds. But it was horrible because Kevin White had an explosive play that he caught. And Kevin White was not making a lot of plays for us. It got negated because of my penalty. I felt so bad about it. But at the end of the day, the guy kicked me in the balls. I had to do something.
You do have to do something. The guy kicks you in the balls.
That was dirty, really dirty. I never got spit on, though.
Spitting on's rough. I wonder if he gets.
Especially if you're injured.
Is that a fine?
If you're injured?
It's definitely fine because the hit was pretty. Like the hit's going to get a fine in and of itself. But does spitting generate a fine in the NFL nowadays?
It should. I just remember Romanowski spitting on guys.
Yeah. It's just.
It wasn't cool then. It's definitely canceled.
Classless.
Cancel it.
Classless. All right, we're going to get to the tier 2 games here in just a second. But first, we got to take a quick little break.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
Terry Crews. By the way, we're back from break.
Crews?
Terry Crews was our guest picker on the top.
Love Terry Crews.
And he was like in a little screen next to me. And I was like, Terry, it's so nice to meet you. I'm a huge fan. He was like, he did the peck pulse. He was like, yeah, Kyle, I'm excited to be here. I was like,
how many times a day do you think he does the peck pulse?
100.
Because every single person he ever meets is like, let's see it.
No, they're like,
bounce.
Terry Crews, nice to meet you. And he knows his role. So he's like, jiggle, 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 jiggle. It was awesome. Terry Crews, he picked the Browns. I said Miles has some feet issues. Miles didn't look like he had any issues. Yeah, but the Giants looked good. We're moving on to tier 2 now.
All right, Lions go to Arizona, really handle this Cardinals offense, win 20-13 as 3-point favorites. The under hits 51.5. The Lions, their game plan, they were not afraid of the Cardinals wide receivers. They went down there to Arizona. They played man. It was borderline disrespectful, honestly, how much man they played. And this was the kind of game that, like, Marvin Harris Jr. has to go off. If you're going to play man, and they didn't even like game plan for Marvin Harris Jr. It wasn't like man with a rolled up safety. It was just
plenty
like
of opportunities.
Cover 1, cover 3. These are the games where that rapport, because they were just off on a few plays. Like that rapport.
Ball was sailing for Kyler.
It was. It was not his A game, and you didn't get kind of the free holes in zone, and they did a really good job keeping in the pocket. I don't think he didn't have any of those spectacular break the pocket, deep shot, whatever. Like there was none of that to be found. And that's kind of like, you live by that, die by that with quarterbacks like that sometimes. But this one, they much, much more made them have to just said, line up and beat us. And Michael Wilson wasn't beating them. And Marvin Harris Jr. beat him sometimes. But I thought they got the better of him. Carlton Davis really gave him a kind of welcome to the NFL. Here's what a press man corner looks like in terms of physicality that you're going to have to deal with.
I think it was 20-10, like middle of the third quarter. Maybe it was beginning of the fourth quarter. That's when I picked up back watching this game. Obviously, I fly home every Sunday, so I don't get an opportunity to watch all the games. But I'm watching the ones that are on, my 4-box. I've got a 4-box, and then I've got an iPad, so I'm watching the Bears, and then I'm watching the 4 ones that I consider to be tier 1s. And I flipped over to this one, And I was like, well, Kyler's got the ball. They got an opportunity to go down there and score. And, they go 3 and out because he missed 2 throws. And I'm like, you put yourself in a position to not be down 1 score. You go score against this Lions team, you make 1 stop, you have an opportunity to go down the field and make a play for your team. But to your point, they challenged them. They said, we dare you to beat our man coverage. And they couldn't, because it's going to have to be tight throws, not tight window throws, but contested catches and contested throws. Kyler wasn't able to do that.
This was a Brad Holmes game for sure. The remodel he's done of that secondary, the hat tip to him, because those guys, whether it was Carlton Davis, whether it was Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, who he drafted, who had that really scary collision, who I hope he's back and healthy, but that one was tough to watch after that. Both him and Trey McBride concussed after that. I think Kirby Joseph, too. Kirby Joseph was balling. He looks like one of the best cover safeties in the NFL so far this season. Had a pick, could have had another. His range is great. His one-on-one ability is great. So this Lions secondary, it's tough. They're kind of like a defensive football team now. They are winning these ugly, low-scoring games. The offense still feels like less than the sum of its parts, because the offensive line, this was the best they looked all year. And it's obviously going to be the case when you face this Cardinals defensive front, but they gave them pretty much anything they wanted, and still
it should be explosive. It should be 28. It should be 28-7. It should be 35-14.
Still feels like they're kind of not quite there. And this was kind of like a C+-ish game from Goff. He had that really ugly pick that he's kind of good for one of those a week.
Continues to happen, doesn't it?
But was accurate pretty much the rest of the game. So for the Lions, this is the game you have to have if you are that true top of the NFC short team, right? And the top of the NFC right now is wide open, it looks like. I think the Vikings truly may be that team at this point in time. But the Lions are talented enough to be that team and to not really go.
Well, the Lions have also played in those big games. So if they were to play, let's just imagine a playoff game next week with the Vikings and the Lions. I'm not going to just have the Vikings as a shoo-in to win this football game. The Lions have been in these big games over the course of the last 2 years. You look at last year, they weren't able to finish. They did have the lead. They blow the lead in the NFC Championship. So you got to find a way to win, but you got to find a way to win the games that you're ahead in. They found a way to do this on the road. But to your point, Jared Goff still not super impressive, and they did lean on this offensive line heavily.
They might be a defense team now. And Nate Hutchinson gets another sack. His string of tackles, because he went up against the third string right tackle now, is unbelievable. Back up through 3 weeks. Maybe we'll get to see him.
It's like when you pull the lever in the casino, it's 777. He's just the music's playing for him.
Man's living right for an extension here after this.
That's what happens when you don't leave the field, bro.
It helps so too.
You don't leave the field, you get these opportunities.
Walk into them. All right, Chargers head to Pittsburgh, face the Steelers. Steelers.
This one was surprising for me.
Ground and pound to a complete halt of this Los Angeles Chargers team. They struggled to move the football. 20-10 win for them. They covered the 1.5 point spread, and the lowest under that we've seen all season, 35.5 points. Well, it hits the under because, these are defensive teams. Steelers 3-0. They've scored only 3 touchdowns all season long. Only the second team.
They've kept 3 teams to under 10 points.
Second team in the Super Bowl era to do so, to win 3 games with only 3 touchdowns the first 3 weeks, and allow 10 or fewer points now. This defense is for real, and it's not just everyone knows TJ Watt. Everyone knows Cam Hayward. I think the Steelers have the best backup edge rusher and the best backup defensive tackle in the NFL. I think Nick Herbig, you saw it. He had a sack fumble in this game. He had 2 sacks, actually. He got to the outside edge of Rashawn Slater and ripped back to the top of the pocket. That is stuff that's
tough sledding.
The vast majority of starting edge rushers in the NFL aren't doing against Rashawn Slater. He's a backup for that team doing it. And so he's lightning as a DPR sort of third down option. And then Keanu Benton on the interior is a grown man. The only reason is he's not necessarily a backup. He kind of rotates in there with Larry Ogunjobi. They're kind of even on snaps throughout the season. But he looks like an absolute dude. So it's not just
when you don't
starters.
have a dip. When you don't have a dip between the first guy and the second guy, it is it's tough. And there's only a handful of those units you play against as an O-line or as an offense every year where you know that when the starter comes out, you're not going to get any break. You're not going to be able to take your foot off the gas pedal in terms of aggression, effort, technique. You play the Steelers team, buddy, you better get ready for a fight. It's going to be 12 rounds and it's going to be a fight.
And the Chargers did the thing I hate the most when you have a quarterback who's kind of banged up, which is let's run the ball every single first down.
Yeah.
They 9 first down runs out of, I believe it was 12 with Herbert in there. They went for 19 yards on
Try one quick game.
Well, that's when you can protect your quarterback the best in terms of play action too, where it's like that's when he's going to get hit the least. When those first down runs go nowhere, and then that second down run goes.
Second down
I can't
run.
talk.
You got it.
All right now. Second down run goes nowhere. Well, that third down long, he's going to get his ass clapped. He's going to get
no
hit.
surprises. It's not 3rd and 3. It's not 3rd and 2. It's 3rd and 6, 7, 8, 9 in some situations. Now your injured quarterback is back there and he's sitting in the pocket like,
exactly.
Oh God.
So that's kind of, I did not love that game plan. And obviously, like, there's no great game plan when your quarterback's hurt, right? I mean, some of it was Herbert was not playing well either. He was not hitting throws that he usually makes. But then he gets re-injured, and that's kind of your nightmare scenario, rushing him back the way they did.
He didn't look great in pregame. He didn't look to be too healthy on the field.
So we'll see.
Now it's even worse.
But some other notes. Joe Alt versus TJ Watt. I counted 4 one-on-ones in pass for the entire day. They were terrified of letting him go. They had a tight end over there pretty much every time. On those 4, 3 TJ Watt wins, including a sack. Now, the sack, a little fake. Not a little fake. He jumped the snap.
Yeah.
When you get a guy jump the snap, and he's TJ Watt, that's why he has, is going to be the quickest player to 100 sacks.
Well, you got to bring a taser if you're an offensive lineman. Just bring a taser. If they get a good jump, just tase their ass.
There's no option.
There's no penalty for tasing somebody yet.
I think there actually is. But he had no chance in that one. But, yeah, also TJ Watt was going to give him
I used
kind
to
of
tell
pressure to get in
Sue I
trouble.
was going to tase him if he didn't stop playing so damn hard. I was going to just tase him. He never.
I don't think that would even, phase Ndamukong Suh, though.
It
would just piss him off even more. A couple more notes. Real growth from Justin Fields in this one, in my opinion. Now, again, they scored 20 points. It's not like
middle
we're
of the
talking
field.
about. He had an anticipatory throw to a hole in the middle of the field. That was that touchdown to Calvin Austin.
And they went Magnum.
And it was. That was it. It truly was. It was like, what's the one thing that Fields just never wants to do? He never wants to hit those anticipatory window
Those
throws.
intersecting windows where everything's moving. It's like, find your hole. He loves the outbreakers. He loves the deep balls. But now they've got him throwing in the middle. And Justin Fields looks like a real quarterback. And I look like an idiot. And everybody who was like, get him out of Dodge, they look like you-know-whats.
Well,
I'm happy for
we'll
him.
still see. But I feel somewhat vindicated because my take was last February or whenever they were like, trade Fields, what are we going to do? My take the entire time was keep Fields, draft Caleb. Keep Fields, draft Caleb. Don't make your number 1 overall pick start right away. Let Fields have the year.
That's a real hybrid take you just did.
Yeah. Because what 4th rounder is what they're going to get now should Fields play 51% of the snaps, which at this point I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. 4th rounder. Is that worth what
Justin's worth to you?
What he would have been, because he probably would have saved Matt Eberflus' job with the way he's playing right now.
And Caleb Williams wouldn't
be getting thrown to the wolves.
Wouldn't have PTSD, literally.
I think it would have been the best all around. And then should he play even better? Should he have taken should throughout the season takes even more of a next step? He has a Jordan Love-esque second half. I don't see that coming anytime soon, but should that happen, could have flipped him for way more than a 4th round pick with a tag and trade, something like that. So I'd say I feel a little
in addition to the fact that he's becoming a better quarterback and he's in obviously a better program there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree that Arthur Smith's doing a lot more for him than
I think that the guys in that locker room love the person that he is. And when you hear about Justin Fields, they always lead with he's a really hard worker. He works really hard. And I think when you have a quarterback that leads from the front in terms of effort, the team finds it really easy to follow suit. And this is a group that's been led by their defense. So now you get a guy like Justin Fields who gives you that boost on offense. And it's complimentary football. It's low-scoring games, but it's what? It's winning. It's winning. It's winning. It's winning. That's what this game's all about, and that's what Mike Tomlin's done for a very long time.
Last note, Zach Frazier, center. He may be a Pro Bowler this season, your rookie center. If not, at least year 2, year 3, year 4. That guy, that's exactly what you want when you draft center in the second round. Flat out
a good
awesome.
rookie Pro Bowler.
He's been awesome. All right. Next up, Giants traveling to the Browns and put a hurting on Deshaun Watson. 21-15. He was sacked 9 times in this game. No, 8 times in this game. It was brutal. They were 6.5-point favorites. And it was the offensive line this week. It was not Deshaun. He played not well enough to overcome it, obviously.
They were without a chance.
But this one I'm putting on the offensive line. It's not if you weren't going to bench him before, I'm not necessarily going to bench him after. I was going to bench him before, though. So I would still bench him. But this one, my God, dude, they miss Bill Callahan in Cleveland. Like these guys, even guys who were stalwarts, their guards aren't even playing well.
Yep.
And now
Guys
again,
that we loved at the beginning of the year.
yeah. Wyatt Teller. I'm blanking on the left guard. Joel Bitonio.
Yep.
They're not playing well. Dexter Lawrence, though. Dexter Lawrence.
God, he's a man.
This was, if you like pass rushers, this was must-see TV. This was porn for pass rushing.
Miles Garrett was
just demolishing Andrew Thomas. Probably a top 5 left tackle in the NFL. He made look like a rookie.
And I watched some of those clips of Miles Garrett, and as an offensive lineman, you close your eyes and you picture yourself trying to block that rush, and I just don't see any scenario without me having a taser that would be able to stop a guy like Miles Garrett, especially on those rushes. The crossing face on the tackle, the ability to put your foot in the ground. This is a guy with 2 foot injuries right now.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's got 2 ailing feet. He's walking like me after a game, but then the play happens and it's boom, 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 bang, sack. Miles Garrett is that much better than everybody else on the field. It's unbelievable.
Well, he's 270 and he moves like a wide receiver.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
He releases like Justin Jefferson.
Well, he moves like Brian Burns. Brian Burns is 250. Brian Burns is one of the skinniest edge rushers in the NFL. Miles Garrett has 30 pounds on him, power behind him, and they move pretty much indistinguishable from a twitch perspective. It's insane to watch. Brian Burns really went to town on DeJuan Jones, kind of the edge rusher he's going to struggle against when you are 380 pounds. It's the guys that can just run around you right off the line of scrimmage. So he took him to town. And then I got to give a shout out to Elijah Chapman. This year's Tershawn Wharton. He's 6 foot. He's 280. He's a sub-package DT out of SMU, the rookie. But that man attacks. That man's going to get after some quarterbacks. A great third down addition next to Dexter Lawrence. They couldn't look more dissimilar at the defensive tackle position. But that guy.
It's nice to have that
nice
option. We talked about in the run game having a guy that's not a big step down from the starter, rotate in. You talked about Turk Wharton and the benefit that defensive line has for having a true rusher. And now they get that in New York. It's going to be good. I got to give a shout out to Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors. These guys are unbelievable. We've written Daniel Jones off so many times, and you look at the receiving yards in this.
We're still writing Daniel Jones off, but continue.
We've written Daniel Jones off every week that I've done TV since I stopped playing 4 years ago. Yeah. And this is the first time where I can say he actually has a guy out there that he can just throw the football to at an astronomical rate. And more often than not, he's going to be open, he's going to catch it, and he's going to be able to get touchdowns. And for Daniel Jones, that's exactly what you need. You need somebody to help get your confidence back, and I feel like they've got that. They haven't written him off yet. I don't know. It's too early. I would love for this story to go in the way that it's like Daniel Jones is now a guy, and I think Malik Neighbors will help him. I know Malik Neighbors will help him. He's on pace to have like 1,000 targets this year.
No, you don't understand. Giants fans are already terrified.
But that's Giants fans.
Of that possibility. They're already tweeting out things like,
don't do it.
Malik Neighbors saving Daniel Jones' job. I'm already having nightmares about it. Like they hate it.
I can understand why that would happen, but that's the same thing that we were talking about with Justin Fields in Chicago, sure. And now Justin Fields is 3-0, and I'm the crazy person on Twitter. So, let's all go to the same meetings here. All right? Okay?
I did have to laugh, though. Malik Neighbors, sideline catch, Martin Emerson, was exactly what I ranted about last week of he goes over the top of Martin Emerson. Martin Emerson tries to jump up, but Malik Neighbors is there, catches the football. In my opinion, clean play. But they didn't throw the flag, and it was very similar to what we saw. Now, obviously, it's not two guys going 2 different directions that we saw in the Chiefs-Bengals game last week, where I said going over the top. And that was why they called it, is because, impeding his path to the football. Malik Neighbors impeded Martin Emerson's path to the football, even though Emerson had the forward position. I'm doing a lot with my hands here, but Martin Emerson was in front of him. Malik Neighbors goes over the top of him. It was what I just described, that if it was the roles reversed, they wouldn't throw the flag, and lo and behold, no flag.
Yeah, over the top of him, down the left side. He rips it right out of Emerson's hands. And it's one of those balls where they're moving together down the sideline.
Mm-hmm. So it's different because of that. But he is kind of coming back.
Not two cars colliding,
but it's not two guys going opposite directions.
I mean, Neighbors is he the best guy in this draft class?
So I thought he was coming out. So it would be sort of like, I don't want to take a victory lap and say he for sure is, but he looks the best dude.
Got it.
Like he is, the dynamism is different from Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr., great route runner, but we just saw it. Like there were some reps where he just doesn't have that kind of juice that scares you the way that Malik Neighbors does.
You know who has some juice?
Both going to be elite
that
wide
lurks in the tier 3 games?
We got
Caleb Williams.
Oh,
363 yards passing. Something I've never seen as a Chicago Bear.
All right, we're going to get to Caleb Williams, but first we're going to take a quick little break so you can cool off. Maybe get a little ice water bath here before we get to that. All right, Bears travel to New England, face the Colts.
That was the quickest cigarette I've ever had.
Colts win 21-16 as 1.5-point favorites. The under hits in this one. It was 43.5.
Colts didn't win, Bears lost.
That's a very apt way to put it because Anthony Richardson, my Lord, could not hit the broadside of a barn, but this Bears offense couldn't move the ball on the worst run defense in the NFL. We talked about they were the worst run defense in week 1, the worst run defense in week 2. And somehow the Bears turned them into the 85 Bears on the ground. No,
Yes.
not that bad, but they just couldn't move the ball on the ground. Lo and behold. But it was far and away the best Caleb has looked over the course of his NFL career. Now, again, low bar when you're averaging under 100 passing yards per game heading into this. But
whoa!
Look at that. 363 passing yards. Most by a Bears rookie. Now, some of that's a little fake. I think he had 60 yards.
There was a Hail Mary.
With a Hail Mary in there. So a little bit of that.
So
a little
still
bit
over 300. Don't want to hear it.
A little bit of having to play from behind. But you saw him willing to let passes rip far more often.
Yeah.
We still took a number of sacks in this one. Still had that. The offensive line's still not like a world beater, but the accuracy was much better. And I think that's the thing where it's like first 2 weeks, he missed throws. That was not him at USC. We all kind of knew when that came around, things were going to change drastically. And it came around in a big, big way. And this one had some beautiful throws down the football field, one notably to Rome Odunze, who his dad apparently can scout better than guys that get paid millions of dollars to do this.
So they gave that touchdown ball to Rome's dad. You know, Caleb and Rome were arguing over the ball. I think it was part of their celebration, but you got to give it to Rome's dad, you know?
Yeah.
He's the biggest guy that stands up for you.
We didn't get to talk about this last week, but he was tweeting out clips because Dan Orlovsky said
you can't. It seems
he's
like
not getting open at this
level yet.
When, week 2, he had a knee injury. I didn't think his tape was great, but if you go back to week 1, he was
open.
The way he was in this game when he had 6 catches for 112 yards and legitimately could have had a handful more because Caleb actually did miss him a couple times, was getting open, looked awesome in this game. Exactly what, when he drafted number 9 overall, everyone said he's NFL ready. He can do it from day one. That's what doing it from day one looked like. Now, I stole the stat from Robert Mays, but the Bears have only 5 first downs on 59 second down plays. To me, that's probably a little indicative of a play calling.
Yeah.
8.5%. No one else in the NFL is below, I believe, 20% now. So it's the worst in the NFL by far.
It becomes glaring to me that there is maybe it's COVID fog.
But I will also
long
say
COVID for the play callers. Maybe they just can't figure out how to get their minds right because you go a speed option on 4th and 1 in the goal line. I mean, I have questions about a lot of this. You throw the ball 50 plus times with your rookie quarterback.
Was he double back?
He needs a booster. Give him a booster. Give Shano a booster because right now you're looking at this game and for all the facts that you laid out about the Colts team and their inability to stop the run or a nosebleed up front, and then you go throw the ball 50 times, it just tells me there's no confidence. They don't have an answer. They're grasping at straws in terms of play selection.
And the thing is, when you just look at how they built this offensive line, whether it's Tevin Jenkins, whether it's Darnell Wright, whether it's Nate Davis, those should be run blockers.
Yes.
They should be able to run the football.
Yes.
So,
but you had Matt Pryor in there at right guard, who was equally as large as Darnell Wright. So even more so, I'm thinking, put those two guys together, double team, bing, bang, boom. Next thing you know, you should have 4 or 5 yards a pop.
But they don't.
That's not the way it looks.
The one thing I will say with Caleb, and again, a lot of encouraging signs in this one. Yeah, some picks. But the one thing that he's going to throw more picks on if he doesn't fix is he will stare down the first read from the snap. and he will hit back foot and throw a late first read stare down. And it happened numerous times in this one. One of them was one of the picks he threw, and he probably should have thrown another one that was middle of the field safety, came really from the red zone, came over the top of a slot fade route in the red zone. You never get that, but you got that because he was looking there the entire time. He was looking at the slot fade from snap. Middle field safety saw that.
These guys study too. These guys have their eyes open pre-snap too. He's going to learn that. He did look a lot better. I am not panicking on Caleb Williams, but unfortunately for the Bears, I feel like they got to make the playoffs in order to retain this coaching staff. I'm a fan of Matt Eberflus, the dude, but I'm not quite sure that this staff has what we're looking for. I know that Coach Morgan, the offensive line coach, was kind of a carryover from Eberflus' staff. He said, this guy stays. I've seen mismatched technique the last few weeks at that offensive line. I'm a little bit concerned when you watch groups that are well coached. To your point about Callahan and Cleveland, when he leaves, things go awry up front. These aren't bad players. It's even good players. When they're not being told the right things in terms of teaching, they can become middle-of-the-road players. We've seen middle-of-the-road players not get great coaching, in my opinion, in Chicago, and it's less than middle-of-the-road performances.
On the flip side of the ball, from the Colts' perspective, get the win, had to have it, but Anthony Richardson, I mean, they won this game on the ground. Jonathan Taylor, obviously, they rode him. That was why they won this. But I'm watching Anthony Richardson's tape, and I'm like, he might just be Giannis at the free throw line, this guy. He might be. Some of these throws were unbelievable misses.
Yep.
Not like you would be surprised by a college QB missing him the way he did. He had Josh Downs on a flat route. He threw the ball 16 to 20 feet in the air over his head. Next throw, he has a corner route to Michael Pittman, the guy who his go-to guy.
Yep.
He throws it about 10 feet behind him.
It was
10
a
feet over his
big-ass
head.
target, too.
Into a safety who shouldn't have been involved in the play, wouldn't have been at the catch point, right into his stomach. It was just, oof. So the inaccuracy is bad.
Meme. They were like, this is Justin Fields. This is Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson's game from today. And it was two guys just throwing the dodgeball at each other, catching it, throwing it back to him.
It really was.
It was the best meme I've seen all day.
And it's amazing because the arm strength of these guys, like the pure talent, is just undeniable. You watch some of the things they do, and you're just like, whoa.
Well, that's why there's so much grace, right?
Yeah. And
how long does the grace last?
With Anthony Richardson, there's enough good to give him, the rest of this year, just because he's so dynamic as a runner, and it's just the accuracy.
Yeah,
he's not even making terrible.
It's the layups, it's the free throws,
but it's the accuracy.
Hit.
He had Adonai Mitchell. It's almost comical at this point. Wide open, deep crosser, could have hit his head on the goalpost if he just leads them out front. Way underthrown. Now Adonai should come back and have fought for it more, but still another I think he's 2 of 11 now. Targeting Adonai Mitchell. Nick Cross, last note, positive note for the Colts, because obviously they did win this game. He looks like a player at safety, serious range on the back end. Some of the best I've seen watching tape this year. Had a PBU on a corner route, tipped the pick that went to Jalen Jones. That was him doing it, guarding Rome Odunze. Did give a big catch to Odunze, but it was one-on-one against Rome Odunze, and he's a safety. And he now leads the NFL in tackles. So Nick Cross looks like they got something there with him, third-year safety. But
Bears fans, don't panic on Caleb.
Definitely don't panic, because that was the most encouraging we've seen from him. And that was
people that are saying, there's so many people in my mentions like, oh, are you still on Caleb? Justin Fields is 3-0. And I'm like, Caleb just threw for 363. Justin never threw for 300 yards with the Bears. And I know it was a 50-attempt, Hail Mary, stat padding type game, but it is what it is, bro. It is what it is. I like who we got. I'm happy for Justin. I like who we got in Chicago. We just got to figure out the pieces around him.
All right, Texans at Vikings. Vikings, a laugher, 34-7. They have had a habit of doing that to teams this year. As 2.5-point dogs at home. Win going away. It was way over before the fourth quarter even started. Brian Flores, Kevin O'Connell. Just the best coaching staff in the NFL right now, just in terms of both sides of the football.
They are
be
coach of the year and coordinator of the year, right?
I mean, Flores, if he doesn't win coordinator of the year at this point, just 3 weeks in, he is. Now, again,
if he didn't stub his toe this past week.
Again, down the stretch last year, we saw awesome first half, second half of the year, they kind of fell off, but the personnel is better this year. And it's not just, we've highlighted a bunch of the guys they've added, but have really highlighted Andrew Van Ginkel, and he was huge in this game. Awesome playing the run, a versatile edge who they can pretty much line up anywhere, and he can go drop back and cover, and he can rush the passer.
He's like that New England mold. He is that New England
He is.
mold.
Oh, 100%.
He can be anywhere on the field, and you got to prepare for him.
But what he's doing, and it's not only in this game, it was a lot of too high. They basically said, we're going to create the chaos with our front seven, not our back seven. Our back seven's going to run a lot of shell. And if we mess up with these blitz packages, we want guys who can make sure it's only a 15-yard gain and not necessarily a 50-yard gain. So they were playing a lot of safeties deep. But then come second half, they kind of flip the script. And all of a sudden, Harris Smith was coming off in blitz most of the second half. And he was around the line of scrimmage. And the guy that,
which we've seen throughout the course of the year. It's not new stuff. You know, him as the end man on the line of scrimmage, he's your hot read for a lot of these. And with Harrison, he's just a chaotic dude to deal with.
There's just not a lot of DCs that are willing to bring 6-man and a safety on first down. And that's what he was doing to this Texans team. And so you had a lot of throws where C.J. Stroud gets the ball
off schedule.
It just has to go. The ball had to get out of his hand because whatever protection they had did not account for who was coming. And in this game, they were getting edge rushers, even when they went max pro. And I think the Texans really wanted to deal with these blitzes. That was their answer.
Clean up the pocket.
When that happened, they were getting Jonathan Grenard one-on-one against tight ends. And all of a sudden that became win. So there was really, he could do no wrong, had the answer for everything that the Texans wanted to do offensively. CJ Stroud, not much of a chance here. There just was too much pressure coming in. And that's how you see Stroud throw, pick early on, could have thrown another one. It was just ugly.
Uncharacteristic day for C.J. Stroud, but that's what happens when these chaotic defensive coordinators have a really good game plan. You get an opportunity to play at home for Minnesota. It's hard to communicate pre-snap. Things happen fast, man. And you got really good players that are in these movable positions like Harrison Smith and Van Ginkel.
And that's it. It's one, they have the personnel that Flores trusts completely, that these are proven, veteran, intelligent football players.
Yes.
Right? Like that's what they wanted in the second half, whether it's Gilmore at corner. They have guys that have seen a ton of football at this point. And whether it's those three safeties in Metellus, Bynum, and Harrison Smith, who are all like heady football players. And so when they run these exotic blitzes, you are worried as a quarterback because those guys are jumping routes left and right. He gives them that sort of freedom because he trusts them because, again, these are not dumb football players.
Trust what you see and play fast.
And
that's
so
what coaches want.
So it's not when they have like a zone behind a 5-man or 6-man blitz, it's not playing out like 4 zones getting covered underneath. It's playing out like he's running right underneath the first man he sees who's coming near him. You know, it's definitely just a different philosophical.
They're aggressive.
Yeah.
They're aggressive. They trust their guys to make plays. Obviously, there are going to be instances where that guy jumps on the route and maybe there's a double move, but we got guys on the back end too.
Exactly.
So
and that's why they
play fast. It's almost like when I was playing tackle and you knew that you had, like, for example, I saw Cole Kmet and Mercedes Lewis in the game yesterday. They gave up a sack to the outside in pass protection. When there's 2 tight ends, you got to cover it up. You can shoot your gun because you know you got help inside. It's the same thing as these defenders that are sprinting downhill, robbing certain zones. You got guys behind you. Shoot your shot. Make it difficult for them to get it in that window. And you can play confident.
Now, flip side of the ball, Vikings offense, Darnold is not – he's not any thing elite just yet, but I think the biggest thing I've seen from him, that's probably the most encouraging thing, is the controlled aggression. He is aggressive when it's called for. He is not throwing the jump balls he's so known for. He's not throwing these double coverage, missing linebackers, that sort of thing. There's still that within him. Don't get me wrong. But he is taking very good chances with the football, and he is not shying away from throwing downfield when he thinks he has a good chance. And that's how you have 8 touchdowns to lead the NFL through 3 weeks now. Insane stuff.
He's been awesome. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Kevin O'Connell. He's not much older than us. It's impressive for these guys. Big time.
And everyone's saying that people are now being like, oh, what, did they trade J.J. McCarthy? It's like, no, I think you're ecstatic.
I think you're in the perfect spot.
Because now Darnold, maybe you tag and trade him. Maybe he's not worth that. Maybe just let him walk for a compensatory pick, whatever. But you have McCarthy getting a full year to learn Kevin O'Connell's system, and you see what it can do for a quarterback, right?
Yep.
Like you see that maybe you have a QB whisperer on hand. willing to develop a guy who is going to work his butt off, even if he is hurt, in J.J. McCarthy. So if you're a Vikings fan, in terms of just expectations going into the season versus how it's played out through 3 weeks, no fan base in the NFL has to be happier. They got to be the happiest one, in my opinion.
Well, they didn't expect this. I mean, you start off, you draft this guy, he goes down. Next thing you know, you got Sam Darnold. Everybody's like, well, is our team good enough for Sam Darnold to win? Look at you guys now, 3-0. Not only 3-0, dominating on defense. Great, in my opinion, on offense. Sam Darnold hasn't been the best quarterback in the league, but, man, he's throwing a lot of touchdowns, huh? That's pretty good in my book.
You almost went full Gruden there. I thought it's pretty good. Look at that.
Pretty good, huh? You like football? You like football? Sam Darnold, come play for the Vikings.
Don't do this. All right, a few more games to get through here. Some laughers at the end to run through. Broncos blow out the Bucs on the road. No one saw this coming because the Bucs were 6.5-point favorites in this one. 26-7. Another rookie quarterback, as good as he's looked in this young season. And truthfully, the biggest difference with Bo Nix this week, because he still threw one nearly to the other team, he just hit the downfield throws.
Yep.
He finally hit the downfield throws, had some big plays. You saw his legs really be a weapon in this one. And we were kind of talking before the show. Everyone's saying these cover 2 defenses and whatnot. How do you beat them? How do you beat them? Well, a guy that can play as quickly on schedule as Nix does and just dart, those hitch routes, those outs, whatever, get you down the football field like that. And then when those aren't there, still beat you with his legs and get outside the pocket and run for some first downs, run for some touchdowns the way he did in this game. That's a great combo.
Those are the plays I liked. Getting Bo Nix on the edge, getting him outside. And it's like that classic Madden situation where you roll left, the linebacker's got to make a decision, the cover corner's got to make a decision. And then as the quarterback, the ultimate decision's on you. Do I keep? Do I throw? He made the right decisions, was able to get into the end zone. Next thing you know, you're winning by 3 scores.
I think that was the most underrated thing with him in the draft process was like he's a real athlete. 47 yards on the ground in this one, 9 carries. He can evade a defensive end. And he's a big, built kind of like a running back too, in that
he is.
Can
he does
break
have
some
that
tackles
build
too when he needs to. So really encouraging from him. On the flip side of the ball, Denver Broncos defense, they made life tough for Baker Mayfield by playing a lot of man coverage. They had Patrick Surtain go follow Mike Evans, and that's who Surtain should shut down. Bigger, longer, physical wide cornerback. He did his job against Mike Evans, but then Riley Moss against Godwin. How am I blanking on his name?
Godwin.
Chris Godwin?
Yeah.
There we go. Chris Godwin. He went one-on-one against Chris Godwin, and Riley Moss was locking him down. That was a very impressive performance from the second-year corner.
And that's so not what this Bucs group expects, because if you've got a guy on defense that's good enough to hang with Mike Evans, you're obviously going to keep him with Mike Evans. He'll try to travel and keep him at bay. But then you're like, well, we've got Godwin. He's going to be able to get open. It's the same conversation we have with the Niners, with Debo, with Ayuk. Like, which flavor do you want? Who do you want to guard? We're going to go to the other guy. To your point, they couldn't go to the other guy this game.
Riley Moss, his feet are tremendous. Really impressed with him. If we go back now, because he is the first starting white corner in the NFL since Jason Sehorn. But at Iowa coming out, all they did was play off zone. So they were just like off zone, off zone, off zone. You watch this guy's tape. You watch him at the Senior Bowl. When he had to play man coverage, you're like, I don't know what that's going to look like. But the athleticism was off the charts coming out. Year one, I think he was hurt, didn't play much. This year, now their starter. The man coverage ability has shown. It has come through. He looks like they have something now. He did lose on a fade route in the end zone, but pretty much everything, he made life difficult for Chris Godwin and this Bucs offense. And then Baker started off erratic, missed some throws, some clean pockets, and then once the pressure
Took
came,
some shots.
it was like
He got blasted a couple times.
He wasn't overcoming that. The one encouraging sign, though, for the Bucs, if there is any silver lining, Tyke Smith, your, I believe, 4th round safety / corner / he's the slot in that defense. He was tough around the line of scrimmage, man. He looks good through the first 3 games. Physical slot, kind of what every defense is looking for, that guy that can really make plays and run. Quick passing game. He played well in this one. So your one silver lining for the Tampa Bay Bucs.
My one silver lining for the Tampa Bay Bucs is that they live in Tampa Bay and they don't have to go to some crappy city. Tampa Bay's pretty sweet. I think it's like top 5 places to live in the country.
I would say I'm not panicking either because no Vita Vea. I like Tampa a lot. No Vita Vea, no Kalijah Kancey in this one. that.
I'm not panicking.
Played a big role.
They still got great leadership and experience in that room. They've got a good DC. They got their asses kicked.
We'll talk
this
to
week.
Pete Prisco.
It happens.
He's panicking.
These guys get their asses kicked sometimes. It's the National Football League. They get paid too. The ability to compartmentalize and move on to the next week is an ability that is underappreciated in this league.
Yes. And
They're going to have to do that.
The team that's going to keep having to move on because they're losing games, it's the Tennessee Titans, who at home get trounced by the Packers 30-14. Really wasn't close. I mean, that final score isn't close, and it wasn't because somehow this Packers offense keeps dialing it up. As you see there on the screen, Will Levis, 8 turnovers through 3 games.
Oh.
I described him pre-show as a horse that has blinders on.
Uh-huh.
If it's within his line of sight, he looks so good at it. If it's something that's right in front of him, and he does some very good things, and his arm looks great, and the accuracy looks much improved even from last year. Like, it's not him missing throws.
The hero plays.
It's just him having certified brain farts, whether it's the pick 6, which was a rolled up, flat-footed Jair Alexander, not backing away on a hitch route. You don't throw that. He's looking at him. If a flat-footed corner's on the outside, you don't throw that hitch route. You reset yourself and you look to somewhere else. You don't throw that. That was disastrous. That kind of set the tone. The forced fumble, I'm not really going to kill him for. It's obviously not great ball security. And he has these, he kind of just has this like worry about using his legs and really like breaking the pocket too quickly. He always wants to kind of like maneuver in the pocket. And on that one, there was no maneuvering because Nicholas Petit-Frere did not even get a hand. That's rare in the NFL. I can count probably on one hand the amount of times I've seen an offense tackle one-on-one in pass pro. Not even get a hand on Kingsley Enagbare on that one, who had a monster game himself. Some other notes, though. Tennessee, though, but like Levis, the last one to note, 4th down, 4th and 2, the one where he ran for it. They didn't really highlight on the broadcast, but his first read is the flat. I think it was either running back or tight end. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, coming out to the flat. He's wide open, like flat out wide open. And Levis decided probably within a split second of him turning his head and looking that he was going to run that football. I don't know what the hell that was. That was one of the worst decisions I saw all week because it was wide open 4th down.
Hero ball.
We didn't get to see Brian Callahan's lips after that. We didn't get a zoom in, but they probably were even less kind than
They're probably going like this.
Because when you scheme up a flat route wide open on a 4th down,
You take it.
And you get pissed as a head coach if you don't. So yeah, Levis he's a horse with blinders on right now.
Horse with blinders. He's trying to do too much. Got to relax. You got a good football team around you, man. You should go play some ball.
Backers notes.
Is this sustainable? Is this sustainable?
It is, because I think this O-line's much better than I don't necessarily we gave him credit for, but like Sean Ryan at right guard is playing great football right now. They're moving people in the running game. So this running game is tough to beat. And that was Malik Willis actually played quarterback in that game. First game, it was like, okay, it was kind of gimmicky. They didn't trust him on a lot. When he did have to play quarterback a lot of times, it was him tucking it and running it. That was real. It was real from the first drive where he hits on a 3rd down, a go ball to Christian Watson in a great position. There were just a lot of good signs there from Malik Willis that, I'm not saying he's going to be a franchise quarterback for anyone, that like there was still like just a fine game from him. But that was a sign, like that was a signal that he has come so far. If you just looked at what he was at Tennessee versus that's a man who's improving. And that's when you're as raw as he was coming out, when you're only in your 3rd year and you're as toolsy as he is, that's what you got to see. And he's shown it. So
improvement.
Hats off to him.
LaFleur just doing his magic. And, obviously the Green Bay team, they understands what's at stake. They need to get wins early and often. And with Jordan Love out, they all need to raise the level of their play. That's why you see this team going out week after week. They believe that when Jordan Love comes back, they'll get even better. We could be looking at some blowouts for this Packers team moving forward.
I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But I think the one other thing I want to note, this Green Bay offensive line, I mentioned Sean Ryan. But what I love is they all can play in space. And so it opens up this playbook for LaFleur, and you see so many screens like the one to Emmanuel Wilson. You see these wide runs. You just let all 5 guys.
We hate those plays, by the way.
Get out on the move.
We hate those
as
plays.
no lineman.
Yeah, you got to run so far. We have to run so far. You know how hard that is for a guy that's 320 pounds to run outside by the numbers?
I've always thought that.
And then go hit somebody and then sprint back to the huddle?
I've always thought that take about quarterbacks that scramble a lot doesn't get talked about. is that when you're like kind of sucking wind the next play, you're not going to throw it as well. When you're running for your,
Yes.
like literally like those guys who are just running, how Caleb was playing the first 2 weeks, when you're just running,
Yes.
that can lead to inaccuracy.
Yep.
When you are tired the next play and asked to drop back and throw, you're just not going to throw it as well.
Yeah, it's like asking
But it doesn't get
a
talked
pitcher
about.
to go run to the wall and back and then
throw a
pitch. It's
fastball.
like, come on.
I think he's going to get rocked. And, well, sometimes you get rocked.
Like
All right,
the
last
Titans
two
did.
games. Panthers trounce the Raiders 36-22. We mentioned the business decision.
Did you hear that?
earlier.
The Red Rifle just fired another round off.
The first quarterback this season to have a 3-touchdown,
Are you
300-yard
kidding me?
passing performance. In his 2 games now, he has 680 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think it's safe to say it was Bryce Young. But it's also hilarious. Like, this is the game the running game gets on track. They went for like well over 100 yards on the ground.
Bryce Young is pissed.
No, it's Bryce. Don't be pissed. Just go work harder.
He's-
Like, it was you,
He's
dude.
pissed.
It was. I mean, they needed a running game when he was in there, sure, but they also could pack the boxes because they were not afraid of you because you weren't doing anything. They were afraid of Andy Dalton because he had an absolute dime up the seam for a touchdown early in this one, and then the Raiders. They turned to Aiden O'Connell in the second half. I don't know where you turn. You're paying kind of Gardner Minshew a lot of money. You're in this weird spot, the quarterback position, but then Aiden O'Connell is young and could maybe be more promising,
Was
but I'm not
close
sure
to
he would
winning
be.
the thing, but
And he actually made some plays and had a touchdown drive there at the end. But the Raiders' rushing offense so far this season, we talk about not having a run game. They are the worst EPA per rush since the turn of the century through the first 3 weeks, minus 0.51. It's almost difficult to fathom. So I mentioned the Chargers.
turn of the century is in the year 2000,
Yes,
not the year 1900.
correct.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you.
So minus 0.51 EPA per rush. To put that in perspective, the Chargers gained 19 yards on 9 carries. That's only minus 3.36 EPA per rush. So it's worse than 2 yards per carry. Now, some of that's because of fumbles and whatnot, but they've been awful. They've been flat out awful.
And this is a team with a coordinator who's historically got groups that
Gets it.
have a commitment to running the football and being in the top, I'd say top 5, top 3 every single year that Getsy's been in a building anywhere they run the football. They're not getting it going now, and they've got questions at the quarterback position. Antonio Pierce got questions about effort on the back end. This is not good. Not good, Cotton.
Not great, Bob. All right, last one. Dolphins going to the Seahawks, get trounced 24-3. Dolphins offense been not Mike McDaniels-esque, and we have some within Dolphins Nation predicting Mike McDaniels could give up play calling duties. Now, their offensive line was still a good deal of backups. Tron Armstead goes down early in this game. And so when you're starting like Kendall Lamb at left tackle.
This game was a wash for me. I won't even watch the tape because I just know it's one of those games. You don't have Tua, you're on the road, you're behind the 8 ball.
I'll just say from the flip side of the ball, Seahawks, because they're 3-0 now. They are comfortably atop that division. This season couldn't have started much better for them from a pure win-loss perspective because they're 3-0. Rams are 1-2. Cards are 1-2.
Niners
are 1-2. Everyone else in the division kind of faltering. And they really haven't played like an A-plus game. Even this one, you get 2 picks from Geno Smith, even if they're both kind of tipped, because Geno in this offense is thriving. They're doing a lot of 5-out, a lot of spacing, and he's just picking his way down the football field. He's doing a lot of good things, but the O-line is still not good enough. If we're talking about contenders long-term, I watch this guard position for the Seattle Seahawks team, and they're just going to ruin a ton of drives. They just flat out are. And that's why you get the offense with, I think, Geno Smith even playing really good ball, not really ever getting to the explosive tier you want. And again, it's a first-year OC, and it's early on in the season, and maybe things will turn around, and maybe these guards will start to play better, or maybe Christian Haynes, your third-rounder, comes in and takes the place of Laken Tomlinson, and all of a sudden things turn around. But with what they want to do, I am just worried about this offensive line still. So, great start. Things are going great. And I picked them to win the division. So
Because
I feel good about it.
eventually somebody's going to get you covered up on the back end, and they're going to force you to run the football. And if you can't run the football effectively, you become a 0-dimensional team.
Well, if you're just a lot of third downs and you have 2 guards that can't block their way.
Oh,
out of
well,
things
if you get into third and not short, if you get into third and not 5, and these guys have to stand up and pass pro too, it doesn't spell success.
All right, let's put a bow on week 3 of the NFL season. Something that changed your mind, something that solidified your opinion.
Actually, you go first. I wrote this down here, so I'm going to make sure I get my verbiage right.
All right, I'll do it. Something that changed my mind. I have Malik Willis could actually end up a starter somewhere. I thought when you flip a 7th rounder for him, Tennessee just had seen that he was not ready to play in the NFL, right? Like the guy, I think you saw the graphic on the broadcast if you watched it at all. His first 2 starts were like an abject disaster, 51% completion percentage. Really couldn't throw the football to save his life. That looked different. This was a guy, 30 points again. It's a lot of that's on the back of the running game, but he's involved in that running game too. He is very dynamic as a runner. He's built like a running back. The guy can break tackles. Thought he could even gone more often, use his legs more and bought into them at times. He was still kind of like wanting to be a passer first when that guy's dynamic. So a lot to like from Malik Willis. I'm not saying he will, but he may end up, a week 1 starter somewhere in time based off what I've seen through the 2 weeks.
Something that changed my mind. Maybe the Chiefs actually do get special treatment.
Oh,
I was on the Chiefs. People complained about it. The refs, they love Mahomes. They love Andy Reid. They love Travis Kelce. And then the no call last night. And it really leads you in a direction where you start to wonder whether or not this could be a real thing. Is there a script? Is there a fix out for this Chiefs team? Obviously, this is all tongue in cheek. I know the game's not rigged. I've played in the NFL. You got to go win football games. Sometimes there's missed calls. But if I'm just Joe Bag of Donuts watching this game and I don't have a dog in the fight, here we go, dogs and fights. I can't say that.
Yeah.
I can't say a dog in the fight anymore. I have to work on that. But if I don't have a team I'm rooting for and I watch that and that's a pass interference. Changed my mind. Maybe the Chiefs are, in on the fix. Something that proved something to me. What's the way we said this? Something that solidified my opinion. I knew Rashee Rice was going to be a good player. Rashee Rice is a superstar. He is going to be a superstar in the National Football League. And when Travis Kelce eventually takes his retirement tour and goes and makes $1 billion in the podcast industry, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be Rashee Rice on that football team. That's where the ball is going to go. We saw volume last night. He is so explosive, dynamic, the ability to get open early and often in plays, the ability to then go down the field and make plays over the top. There's just not many guys, young guys that are out there doing the things that Rashee Rice is doing, and they're leaning on him heavily. So I know he's going to be ready to roll in the playoffs.
Week 1, I think I said that Kelce passed the torch to Rice in terms of just like what they were scheming up, who they were trying to get open through the passing concepts, but I wasn't necessarily sold on Rice being like, top 10 receiver level, like a guy. Like I knew he was getting featured.
I hadn't thought about it in that terms yet.
But I wasn't necessarily sure he was like a flat out guy. The more I've watched, the more I'm like, oh, okay, that's
if he didn't wear a single digit number, who would you compare him to? Because it's hard. You see these guys with single digit numbers and they just look more athletically inclined, right? And then you see the double digit numbers.
My first squint and who I kind of saw was like early Brandon Ayuk. When Brandon Ayuk year 2, that's what he kind of looked like. That ability to just one cut gas by
separation
someone, like just that easy fluidity that got you don't. And he has it. Ayuk has it. A lot of the good ones have it.
And Juju coming in making a big play.
Oh, I thought you were going to compare Juju. I'm like, dude,
no. Juju came in and made a good play.
And
Chris Collins was like, and here's a guy who does well against zone defense. Boom. He goes drag concept, touchdown, Juju. Watch out.
All right, solidified my opinion. 14 games of Jameis Winston. We need it. The world needs it. We're praying. We have a moment of silence. For 14 games of Jameis Winston, it's just, when's enough?
Yep.
It's bad in Cleveland. And Jameis, say what you want about him. He'll get the ball out. He's never taken sacks over the course of his career. Maybe he's throwing picks.
30 for 30.
But it's not as if Deshaun Watson's not putting the ball in harm's way himself. So, yeah, Jameis, it's time. Solidified my opinion. Browns, you're going nowhere with Deshaun.
Deshaun's put us all in harm's way.
All right, there you have it. That's our show for the day. Tomorrow we'll be back doing power rankings with Pete Prisco, giving out some awards for the week.
Please stick around for power rankings tomorrow because we're going to ridicule Pete Prisco for some of the things.
Pete had the Bucs at 4 last week.
Oh.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of stuff. Can't wait until then. Until next time, keep pushing.